Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. Let's come to Memories of Childhood, which is a chapter from your CBSE Class 12 syllabus. And this is the bullet short revision that we are doing ahead of your board examination. So let's get into it without wasting a moment. Memories of Childhood. What is the general story about? Now, these are two different stories, but on a common kind of theme. Now, what are we talking about? It features two autobiographical accounts by women from marginalized communities. It highlights discrimination in the USA, okay, and in India. The themes of cultural assimilation, identity loss, prejudice, discrimination, and empowerment. Empowerment that we see in the Indian story right at the end. So, the first story is The Cutting of My Long Hair. The author and the setting, Zitkala Sa, real name is Gertrude Simmons, who's a Native American, is written in the late 19th century at a boarding school for Native Americans. What happens in the story? She arrives at school, experiences an unfamiliar and a rather harsh kind of environment. She learns that her long hair, a symbol of identity, will now have to be cut. I would urge and advise you to please read the story thoroughly once after we see this video. Tries to hide but is forcefully captured and her hair is cut. Feels humiliated and defeated, symbolizing cultural loss. So she feels she has been extremely insulted, right? And the way the hair is cut is a symbol of power from the other side, that we will do to you what you may not approve of. So that's what it conveys. The characters, the narrator who resists assimilation but is overpowered, Judwin, a resigned friend who warns her about the haircut, and the pale-faced woman who represents cultural oppression. What are the themes in the first story? The forced loss of native traditions, the loss of identity, and the discrimination. The way the native children are treated in a rather harsh manner. What is the style of storytelling? There's a lot of sound imagery because it creates a sense of fear and oppression. There is a use of symbolism because the haircut represents cultural dominance. You know, the way the hair would now be cut, it represents what we will impose on you, but the hair also meant something to the Native Americans. Let's come to the second story. We too are human beings. It is set in Tamil Nadu. The character is Bama, who is a Tamil Dalit writer, the author. The narrator enjoys observing her surroundings on the way home. She sees an elder carrying food carefully to be carried for the landlord. The brother explains it's due to caste-based untouchability. The narrator feels angry and questions discrimination. The brother advises her to study hard in order to gain respect, because education can be your passport to a better life and a life of dignity. Narrator excels in schools and earns recognition. Who are the characters? The narrator, the young Dalit girl who becomes aware of caste discrimination. The brother, who is referred to as Annan, he encourages her to study to break the social barriers. And the elder, who is forced to follow caste-based rules. What are the themes? The theme of caste discrimination in Tamil Nadu. Education as empowerment, extremely important, that if you are educated, you can move up the social ladder. The storytelling style, again very descriptive. There is a sense of humor and irony, exposes caste discrimination's absurdity, and it is highly personalized in nature. So is the first story, but the second story even more so. So the larger message is that discrimination exists in different forms in different cultures. It's not as though there is no discrimination in the USA. There is racial discrimination. It is caste-based discrimination in India. Education and resilience can help overcome social barriers. One must challenge oppression to reclaim your identity and your sense of dignity. Let's look at some multiple choice questions. Which of these lines from the story, the cutting of my long hair, justifies the statement below? The author of the cutting of my hair was in a place where the students were trained to respond like a trained dog would, right? So option C, right? So it was like a drill which each one of them had to follow. Among our people, short hair was worn by mourners, shingle hair by cowards. This statement is an example of a belief, an opinion, a myth, or a fallacy. It was a belief because that's what it shows. Let's look at some extract based questions. A pale faced woman with white hair came up after us. We were placed in a line of girls who were marching into the dining room. Please go through this and then I will scroll up. Okay, who is the narrator? Bama, warden. This is very easy. C. Who has been referred to as the pale faced woman? The warden. What was the state of mind of the narrator? She was uncomfortable, pleasant, soothing, warm. She was obviously uncomfortable. Let's look at the subjective questions which I've written. What is the importance of education, which I feel very strongly about? Okay, how would it help her work hard and learn? So, Bama's brother tells her that education is important because it will help her to understand the world around her and to become a more independent person. He also tells her that education will help her to fight against the discrimination that she faces as a Dalit. He tells her that if you're always ahead in your lessons, people will come to you of their own accord and attach themselves to you. Now, this is a line directly taken from the text. Bama realizes that this is true because when she stood first in her class, many people became her friends. So, irrespective of her caste. The importance of education is a recurring theme in the story in the context of how people from marginalized communities face discrimination. Since the day I was taken from my mother, I had suffered extreme indignities. What is the narrator possibly referring to? This is what is the answer looks like. The extreme indignities is perhaps a reference to the physical and emotional abuse that she had suffered at the hands of the school staff. She talks about how people had stared at her, making her uncomfortable, and how she had been tossed about in the air like a wooden puppet. But the shingling of her long hair was the last straw. Last straw means इसके बाद तो tolerate नहीं किया जा सकता था, as it reduced her to a coward. The long hair was a symbol of her beauty and her identity, which was taken away. It was like a brutal desecration of her individuality, and she's reduced to loneliness and a living death. She was forced to wear clothes which she did not like and isolated from her family. She felt like one of the many little animals driven by a herder. So that's what she feels like. So, with that, we come to the end of this particular chapter, Memories of Childhood. As I said, not very complicated, but definitely you should read the story again so that you are well aware of all the different elements that constitute the two stories set in America and in Tamil Nadu. Thank you very much. Tata. Bye bye.